Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, where ordinary heroes tell extraordinary stories during unique and never been heard before conversations with your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Hilary's unique listening and way of asking questions results in conversations that aren't usually talked about, so you can create the life that you really want but are afraid you can't really have. We are demonstrating the greatness in the human spirit and creating a world where we all reclaim our birthright of joy, happiness, purpose, and passion. Now, here's your host, Hilary Arno Burns. Welcome to the Getting Real with Hilary show, and today we have a very special guest. We have Jodi Asbell-Clarke. She is a TERC researcher, and we're going to find out all about what that stands for. She is an author. She is a mother, a wife, a recreational soccer player, and a baking enthusiast. So welcome, Jodi.
Thank you. It's lovely being here.
I definitely want to ask you about the baking, but we'll get to that. I don't want to get too off topic, right? At soccer, of course, what position are you? What position?
Defense or goalie. I like to play goalie, but my body doesn't always live up to it. So mostly defense.
Is it?
I always like to read the play. I have more strategy than skill.
Oh. And is it like an older person league? It's not.
I have played in an over 35 league, women over 45. Played a little bit in the over 55, but my body was saying, and now I'm in a co-ed recreational pickup league with 60 to 80-year-olds. It is awesome. 80 plus year olds. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Great. Every Monday and Wednesday morning. That's where you'll find me.
I mean, are they rough or are they like mellow?
We try not to be, but the size differential does get in the way sometimes. And it's hard to tone down competition when you've been competitive all your life.
Did you wear like pennies? I remember pennies from gym class.
Black shirts and white shirts. Yeah, we're in dark and white. Yeah, it's that pick up.
Do you come in a black or white shirt, or you bring
one of each? Bring one of each. Yeah.
Smart.
You're asking all the specifics.
I know. Like, how does this work? Yeah, that's so cool. Well, you know what? Other people might want to do that. You never know.
It keeps me moving. It keeps me motivated. It's sports. I think sports are not only a wonderful lifestyle. Almost everything I know, I've learned on a sports field. The metaphor for how to live your life, I could go on and on and on.
Now, were you always a soccer player, or did you do other sports? I know we're not.
As an adult, it was always soccer, but I was a swimmer when I was young and played a little rugby in college. But yeah, soccer is my metaphor for life.
All right.
I've even written a novel about it, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh my God. All right. I know I'm up. So just tell me, swimming, because I used to be a swimmer when I was young. What was your event?
Butterfly, and I am.
There you go.
A swimmer.
Wow. And did you do it in college and stuff?
No, but you're in Connecticut. I was in regionals in Connecticut in the late 70s. I got to that level, but then life took over. Fun took over for a little while.
Yeah, well, it was intense. Yeah, I swam. I know this is irrelevant.
What was your stroke?
Well, I wasn't that good, but it was good exercise. You know what? This is, again, off topic, but maybe someone needs to hear this. I didn't realize that if I worked harder, I would get faster. I was just trying to survive. And when I was in the States, it was only 1 year, because then I went out for cheerleading and I was like, thank God. I had been hurt sophomore year, so I couldn't do cheerleading, which I enjoyed more. But I don't know how I got to the States sophomore year, but I actually worked and I got faster. And I was like, God, why didn't I know that? It seems so basic, but I was just trying to survive the practices because they were hard. And I wonder if I could have been good. But anyway, after that, I never swam again, but except to do a mini triathlon I did a mini.
That's impressive.
The swimming was like nothing,
That's
For most
impressive.
people, that's the hardest part. Yeah, anyway. This is fun. We could talk forever.
There is something that's going to tie into what we'll talk about, because it's about finding where are you in your element and seeing how I think every learner needs to find some place where they can succeed, because once they do that, they learn so much more about themselves as a learner or as an athlete or as whatever it is. And you need to have that milieu to be able to discover and have the comfort and motivation to challenge yourself. And if you're always put into an environment or a situation where you're not feeling confident and you're being pressed, then all you're doing you're learning how to persist, but you're not learning how to thrive.
And it's funny not funny you say that, but I was at one point I was working out at the Y in Norwalk before they shut it down.
Where I was born, by the way.
Yeah, me too. So, and the window, you had windows into the pool. And I remember watching these athletes, they might've been in high school, junior high, whatever. They were so confident. And I was like, you know what? They have something that they can feel good about, that they know they're good at. And I was like, it's just kind of what you're saying. Where are you in your element, So anyway, so go ahead. So tell us about your life and how you got into this. And
we'll back up a little bit, but I want to get back to that too.
So, all right.
And I can tie it together, because I finished university in the early 80s. And it was during a time when I was one of the few women in STEM. I knew I was going to go into physics or astronomy or something like that, space science.
Right. And just spell it out, because I always forget.
Oh, I'm sorry. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that's what that kind of group together has become a real push point for education in the U.S. and for good reason. We need to be strong in those disciplines to innovate and create. And
I mean, was it even called that then? Did we have enough technology?
No, I was in science, or I studied math and physics.
It wasn't called it then. That's
right.
Okay.
That's right. But I was one of the few, if I'm not the only, female in my physics classes, usually, particularly as they got into the upper levels. And maybe there were one or two others. I shouldn't, but it was definitely a minority. And then I ended up getting scholarships to graduate school. I had decent grades, but I wasn't the top of my class. But I was a female persisting in this field that they wanted more females. So I got scholarships that were later, and fellowships that were greater than my peers. One of my peers turning out to be my future husband, who was a better student than I was, and finished his PhD in astrophysics. And he and I was a decent student, as I said. I couldn't have done it without, but I wasn't nearly as disciplined and serious as my peers. And in that environment, but yeah, I was encouraged all the way along, and that's a very different experience than a lot of the women I know. And I think it's unique.
Wow. Where did you end up?
I went to Keene State College for my first 3 years. Had a great time. Then went to Rochester Institute of Technology to finish my undergrad degree.
Okay.
And then then I went, and at Rochester Institute of Technology, I was a co-op student, and I co-opted with IBM. And here's a great story. When I was a co-op student, I was living in White Plains, New York, living in the YWCA for the summer as while I was co-oping at the big IBM center there.
I remember that.
And I met a woman who was a really wonderful 30-year-old professional woman, African American that doesn't really matter, but in this story, but she was a young professional who kind of took me under her wing and said, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I said, well, I like working for IBM, but I really want to work on the space program. She said, well, go look at the field directory that the company has, and there's a big thing, and go look for the manager's name that you want to work for in the department you want to work for.
Wow.
So write them a letter and say that you'd like to talk with them, and you'll call them 2 weeks for an interview. So I did that, and I went into the book and I saw the name of the manager. Bill Bean was his name. He was the manager of the Federal Systems Division of IBM. So I wrote the letter. I talked 2 weeks later, I call up and I talked to Bill Bean for about an hour and 15 minutes or something. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call. Would you like to come work your last co-op job at the Space Center? And I said, yes. And I go down there. Wow. And I'm there for about a week, and I'm looking around, and everybody else is male and very intense, disciplined, focused, brilliant. And I'm looking around, and finally I asked my office mate, where's Bill? I haven't seen him around. He said, did you really call Bill Bean and talk to him for an hour and a half? And I said, well, yeah. He goes, I've worked here for 10 years. I've never met Bill Bean. Bill Bean is the 5th line manager, my boss's 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 boss.
Oh my God.
Of all of Federal Systems Division for IBM. And it was out of sheer naivete and I guess gall that this 20-year-old would call him and talk to him, and I got that job. So then I went and worked. I got a full-time job and worked on the first 25 missions of the space shuttle, which was as awesome as it sounds. And little, 21-year-old running around with a pager every time the shuttle's up there, getting called in if there's a computer error, and it was meeting all the astronauts and everything. It was intense. It was wonderful. Played soccer, had a totally separate, outside of that life, hanging around with.
That was in Washington? You lived in Washington?
Houston.
Oh, Houston.
At Johnson Space Center.
Wow.
So I did that, and then I wanted to go be an astronaut. So
you were done with school at that point when you were doing.
I finished. Right. These were my first 3 years after university. I had that job.
Oh, but you had to go back to school. Okay.
I had to go back to school, and Sally Ride had just been the first female astronaut in space, and she had a PhD in astrophysics. So I thought, well, I'll get a PhD in astrophysics. So I went to, I actually, during IBM was a wonderful company to work for, and they paid for my master's degree while I was working, paid me to go to school, and it was a whole great deal. So I had a master's by the time I left. And then I went to University of New Mexico to get my PhD. And I did all the coursework and I did the exams and stuff, but I really wasn't as focused on one problem as everybody around me. And I also got married and was pregnant with my first child, which could have worked. And I'm not saying we could have made that work. But I wasn't that into it. And
now, where did you meet him? In New Mexico?
In graduate school. And he is a computational astrophysicist and has just published his own textbook, a primer on magnetohydrodynamics, if anybody wants.
Oh, I want to order that.
Cambridge University Press.
Wow.
So he's retired and I'm getting there soon. So, but anyway.
So you're in New Mexico. I always have to know where you are.
New Mexico, land of enchantment. But the thing, the thing is that, it's a pretty typical story that the woman leaves graduate school and goes into, but that I don't want to paint that story because that's not what it was, because I didn't love astrophysics enough to go into one. I didn't love that one pursuit. And so I was teaching all the way through, and my professors who really wanted me to stay because I was going to be the first female PhD, and they didn't want to let you drop out and all that. But they also said you should go teach. And so when we moved to Illinois, where my husband had a postdoc, I looked at the community college, figuring that's where I'd end up. But they said, have you ever heard of University High School? And University High School is the lab school for the University of Illinois. And it's this small little school. At the time I was there, the graduating classes were about 45 or 50. It has graduated 5 Nobel laureates. It's an amazing little school. It's not, it's by donation. When I was there, it was by donation only. So it wasn't prohibited for financially, but you had to get in.
So you would, but when you say it was the lab school of what?
Of University of Illinois. So in
But
the
it wasn't connected.
long time ago, the University of Illinois education school had a lab school, as was the mode in the 60s, I believe. A lot of big schools of education had laboratory schools.
Okay.
But there was a divorce between the university's faculty and the school long before I got there. And this was just a cool school on the campus of the university. And of course, the faculty were like, sure, I'll send my kids there. And it was just full of
Was it a high school?
It went from 7 to 12, but they called 7, 8 the sub-freshman year. It was 1 year.
Wow.
It was 1 year. And it was kids that were super talented at something, maybe not everything. Like I taught them physics and they were not all the best in physics. But they might be like a madrigal singer. Or I taught this kid who was, he played in the symphony orchestra when he was a child, like a teenager.
Prodigy, yeah.
He's the 4th fastest runner in the state. He was published in English and in Latin. And he was beyond me in physics, far beyond me, and went on to become a wonderful physics researcher. But these kids were really special. But a lot of them, to get back to it, a lot of them might have been dyslexic, might have been what we, now many of them would have been diagnosed with ADHD or autism, things that now we like to label as disabilities, but they come with so many powerful strengths, individual strengths, assets that I just love teaching these kids because you could push them in directions that nobody had gone in before, if you found what tapped into them. So,
well, that, I don't know if this will tie into where we're eventually going, but my friend who's doing this thing, Train Your Genius, Felicia, she spent most of her life trying to fix herself. She was bipolar, I don't even know if she was autistic, but she was a bunch of labels. And finally she said, you know what? I'm tired of that. And that's why she created Train Your Genius, that people, they may not learn like everyone else. They may have sensitivities or whatever, but everyone has a genius.
Right.
And let's train it. Let's take advantage of it rather than saying, oh, that person's disabled or, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Well, and I'm in a separate category. Let's.
Right. And I think
so I hear what you're saying.
I came to that from those 2 experiences because having worked with, quite honestly, some of the most brilliant people in the world that created the space shuttle software, a lot of them were very socially inward, hard to communicate with, hard for me to communicate with, had a lot of things going on that had I known then what I know that now, I could have been a sponge to all their knowledge. And that was part of it. And then similarly, the kids I taught, I knew they were special and talented. I just knew I had to find ways to tap into them. So after that, we only got to meet 30 years old now.
Wait, I'm going to write that down, 30 years old, whatever. I missed that because I was talking, but these people weren't labeled as disabled. They were like geniuses, right? They were
just kids who were being kids who, many of them, their parents realized they weren't going to get that they weren't going to meet their highest potential in this public school system for whatever reason, either because the environment wasn't made for them or for whatever reason. So
it was cool that you could help them. I mean, that's really amazing.
Really amazing experience.
Sad. So you were saying
what I was saying is, what I was saying is that I'm still half my life away from where. So then, only one next big chapter, which is they then came to TERC, which is, it used to be called the Technical Education Research Center. That isn't what we're called anymore. We've just been around since 1965, so we keep our name TERC. TERC is this fabulous little think tank, R&D firm, whatever you want, that has focused all this time on how do we bridge the gap and make equitable, innovative STEM education, science, engineering, technology, and math, education in particular, and make sure we catch those who are falling through the cracks. That's always been our mission. So in 1965, the founders were thinking, oh, well, they're creating all these PhD programs for the space race. So they're going to need technicians. So let's do a vocational technical track. And that's why it was the Technical Education Research Center. And they started with that and had a bunch of major milestones through the 80s and 90s and really impacting STEM education. And I've been there for 31 years. Really fortunate to be able to. TERC is primarily a soft money organization, which means that we have a job if we can keep them. We have to get our grant. We have to get grant funding of some sort to pay and our salaries and our supplies and our rent and all that kind of stuff. So I've grown a team of 10 there, and we've stayed funded all this time. The last 6 months being a jolting exception to that. But and what we've done is designed what we started with a long time ago, astronomy education and curriculum and teacher professional development. But around 2009, we saw that people were playing games, and games were becoming a world. They were becoming a society and a world for people, and particularly people who felt disengaged from formal environments. And what we also saw is that game designers, as my friend Rich Halverson once said, it's like game designers read the educational literature, the learning science literature, and put it into practice long before we educators ever could. The way a well-crafted game is designed is to bring a learner from something they didn't know into an entire environment where they get the tools and skills and narrative or motivation to build their skill at something, to learn how to do something better. And sometimes that something is pretty disgusting, I'll say. I don't like person shooter games. I don't like violent games and stuff. But but it's still the same principles. And oftentimes there's a game called Portal, which is you're going into a place where you have different physics happening. And the learning that you're doing along the way mirrors a lot of what we try to do in a physics class, where we're teaching somebody, Newtonian mechanics is not something a 7th grader walks into the class understanding. But by the time they come out of 10th or 11th grade, you want them to feel comfortable with that. Well, we built a game that was based on Newtonian mechanics, where balls were floating around. They had different mass and they moved according to all the physics principles. And you had to get a ball over here into a goal. And what we found is that kids would develop these strategies. They'd hit the heavier balls more than the light balls. They knew they had to exert more force. Or they'd take their hands off the keyboard and go, let it float, let it float. While Newton said, an object in motion will stay in motion at the constant speed and direction unless exerted by force. So that's what let it float meant. Don't exert force. Let it float. Let it stay in motion. So when we saw that, and when we could show a teacher, when a kid was doing that, the physics teacher could come up and say, hey, let me tell you what Newton said about that. These are Newton's laws. What you just learned innately in that game, implicitly, we can pull that out and tie that to what I want you to learn in your physics class. So that connection was we didn't want to make more gamers. That's not why we're building games. We're saying they're out there and they're learning. How do we take that learning and make it productive, make it explicit, tie it to classroom learning or workplace learning or whatever.
So
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm thinking like, who could do that? Who could make up the games? Or is that people who've studied?
Oh, we made up the games, and then we worked with teachers so that teachers could implement them put them into their classes. And then what we had to do was teach teachers how to bridge that content, how to recognize when their kids were doing it. What we wanted to do, and we started doing, is actually letting the AI and the learning mechanics behind the game tell the teacher, hey, your kid just used the let it float strategy. Bing, 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 bing. Come over here. This is the time to be able to talk to them about physics and do that, what we call differentiated learning. Hilary just learned a concept. Now's the time Hilary needs that. Where Jodi's still over here on level 2, Jodi needs some support on something else. And when we can give a teacher that kind of detailed information about each kid, then we make their job of being able to cater to each kid's needs a little bit easier.
Wow.
So that's what a lot of what
TERC. That was just TERC.
That's TERC. And now that brings us to the most exciting part, which is TERC in the 1990s created a game called Zoombinis. Zoombini. Zoombinis. And I was not on the development team. My colleagues were, but so I can brag and say this is the best learning game ever created. It's still in existence 30 years later. It's still selling well. Teachers are still using it in their classroom for a bunch of reasons, because it's fun and kids love it, particularly kids in like grades 4, 5, 6, right around that age group is perfect for this game. But adults love it. Lots of people love it. It's a logical thinking game, and you're solving puzzles that are based on different characteristics and different if then or tests. Like, it's hard to explain without a visual, but every Zoombini has 5 different characteristics, and all the puzzles.
The Zoomini is a little thing,
a little character, a little blue character. Oh, excuse me. This.
Oh, wait, because of your back. Okay, that's a Zoombini.
That is a Zoombini.
Wow.
This Zoombini has floppy hair, sleepy eyes, a green nose, and purple feet. Other Zoombinis will have different hair, different eyes, different nose, and different feet. And so there'll be puzzles like this bridge might be allergic to the purple feet, but you don't know it's the purple feet. So you have to test all your Zoombinis to figure out, but you only have 5 chances to go wrong, and these kinds of things. And there's pizza trolls who make pizzas for the Zoombinis, and they only like certain toppings, and you have to figure out which toppings they like on there. And it's a very fun game and there's 12 different puzzles, 4 different levels, and every time you play it, it's different. So you're not solving the puzzle, you're figuring out how to solve the puzzle. It's the method and the process. It's not the answer. And for that reason, it's perfect for education, because you're talking about how you can break down, how are you solving that problem? How are you breaking up one big problem down into smaller chunks? What patterns do you see when you're doing these problems? How can you generalize those solutions to a whole set of problems? That's called developing an algorithm. And this is all what we call computational thinking, which is huge in K through 12 education right now, because it's the basis of AI. It's the basis of all the algorithms that are running our world. It's the basis of every interface we work on. It's the basis of the tools that you and I are talking over right now. Computational thinking is the kind of foundational principles that underlie anything that has to do with computers.
So you're teaching them how to think. You're not giving them information.
We're teaching them how to solve problems.
How to solve
problems, and in this very generalizable, repeatable way, that in the way computers do. So Zoombini is this super, super fun game that I'm telling you, there's thousands of people who played it in the 90s, and they were on a Facebook group we didn't even know existed. And when we were going to re-release it, TERC was re-releasing it in 2015 for iPads and new, general platforms now. And people were coming back going, you can't change the name of the Zoombini. I have one tattooed on my hip. You can't change the name. And somebody else said, oh, you're bringing back Zoombini. I can finally have children, because I wasn't going to bring my children into a world without Zoombinis. Horrible. It was crazy. I'm serious. These were quotes that people said, and they're so nostalgic. And so those people who played it as children now are parents and teachers who are just loving having their kids play it. And the teachers see so much value in it. And through that research, when we were using Zoombinis in the class, the teachers were coming up to us over and over and saying, it's that child who sat in the back of the class and never succeeded at anything else, who is solving these problems first, teaching the other kids how to solve these problems, and becoming the class rock star. And we went, whoa. And that happened over and over again. And similarly, special education teachers came up and said, oh, this computational thinking, breaking down big problems into smaller ones, seeing patterns, developing routines. That's exactly what I teach my children. We just have different words for it. So we went, whoa, Zoombinis and neurodiversity and computational thinking, this is a package. So for the last 8 years or so, we've been really studying how do we support what we call executive function, working memory, and cognitive flexibility, and the neural processes that go into problem solving. How do we support those with fun activities like Zoombinis and Zoombinis related activities? So,
wow. All right. On that note, we're going to take our commercial break, and we're going to be right back and talk about your book and what's going on right now. All right. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Okay. Parents and teachers, imagine a classroom where every child belongs, where kids are seen, known, and part of a real community. That's the world Kokori creates. Kokori isn't just another program. It's hands-on, playful, and filled with activities kids love, all while building skills that matter for life: confidence, kindness, resilience, and teamwork. Kids learn how to regulate themselves, connect with others, and discover the joy of learning that lasts a lifetime. And it works. Schools using Kokori have seen behavioral referrals drop by 25%, and teachers save hours of planning time. Whether you're a teacher building a safe, positive classroom or a parent wanting your child to grow socially and emotionally, Kokori makes it easy to bring these life skills into everyday learning. So if you're ready to help kids grow stronger, kinder, and more confident while creating a community where every child belongs, visit kokoriapp.com. That's K-I-K-O-R-I, where kids thrive together. This is Earth, a planet of extraordinary beauty, filled with life, potential, and possibility. We, the people of this world, are united in our shared humanity. We stand together to embrace the present, heal the past, and create a future where all can thrive. On October 18th, we come together to celebrate what it means to be human, to raise the consciousness of our collective spirit and amplify the best of who we are. From the earth we walk on, to the health of our bodies, to the flourishing of our minds, Humanity Day is about more than just one moment. It's a new beginning. This is our call to action, to invent a new future where we nurture the earth, each other, and the next generations to come. Join us. One day, one world, one humanity. Visit IamHumanity.net and be part of something greater. Together, we'll create a world where humanity thrives. Hey, it's Hilary from the Getting Real with Hilary show. Life can be messy, raw, and real. And sometimes we're afraid to feel vulnerable. We're afraid to be that real self. Well, that's exactly what the Getting Real with Hilary show and Getting Real movement is all about, being our true selves. Every week, I bring you stories of transformation, authenticity, and hope. People getting real with their struggles, their faith, and their breakthroughs. So don't miss a thing. Subscribe to my weekly newsletter today. You'll get stories, links to everything new, and how to create a life you love every week directly to your inbox. You can also find my books on Amazon. My courageous and riveting memoir, The Second Piece of French Toast, in case you feel stuck in your life and want to get inspired. How I came out about my no sex life in my marriage, in my second book, Real Talk. That one will get you speaking up in ways you've been too afraid to do so, and really creating amazing freedom. And my third book, How to Stop Fixing Yourself and Start Having Fun, the name is called Your Bullshit is Your Blessing. Find links to everything and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Getting Real with Hilary, and you'll find the links in the header. So visit, and you can also visit gettingrealwithhilary.com, because the real you is worth it and wants to come out. And thank you, as always, to our sponsor, kokoriapp.com. You saw the commercial. They bring play. It sort of ties in with what we're talking about here. And we're going to try to definitely connect these guys. And then Jerry Dale, he's one of our sponsors. You see him coming across. Ed Hajim, who wrote his books. And then we're going to have some new people, probably by the time this one comes out, which you will see as well. And then my books, my 3 books. Real Talk is my middle one. How to say the things you've never said so you can have the things you've always wanted. So if you're one of those people who doesn't speak up, that can definitely help you. This one, Your Bullshit is Your Blessing. How to Stop Fixing Yourself and Start Having Fun, which again you saw on the commercial. And then my memoir, The Second Piece of French Toast. If Marriage Was My Dream, Why Was I Numbing Myself? Well, you can find out in here. And if you're a number, you might relate to it and it might help you get inspired. And welcome back, Jodi Asbell-Clarke. This is so interesting. Wow. Okay.
I'm hungry for French toast.
Yeah, I know. It's a good story. Okay. So we were talking about, so they brought back Zoombinis and then you wrote a book. And how does all that tie in now?
Well, following the research that we did on Zoombinis and in game-based learning, I was fortunate enough to get a sabbatical from TERC to write up not only my research results, but also in my outside life, in my personal life. I was volunteering in a class in a very high needs school here, and I ended up co-teaching with a wonderful teacher named Sadie Bradbury, who unfortunately retired, but she's still one of my best friends. And we tried our hand at project-based learning with a class, with her classes who were, it's hard to explain this. They had every social, cognitive, and well, maybe not as many physical, but social and cognitive differences one can imagine. Mm-hmm. We had severely autistic kids who, were nonverbal and had a real hard time fitting into a mainstream classroom. At the same time, sometimes had the most going on inside. They were like brilliant. And so we were really wanting to get them to be able to express what they knew. And we also had, definitely kids who were ADHD and just not meant to sit in a chair for an hour at a time. And then we also had kids who, seen their parents shot, or, parents in jail, or very hungry, or all the things that come with trauma that even if they didn't have a neurological difference that caused executive function differences, just the stress, the chronic stress and conditions of their lives caused them to really not be able to attend and pay attention and retain information as easily as they might have been able to. So what we wanted to do was help these kids thrive, what we were talking, find their success point. And Sadie was the most amazing relationship builder with every child in her class. And that was the foundation. And so we found out what it was that made this kid tick, what made them scared, what, all those. And we found ways for most of them to be able to engage in something for at least a couple of hours a week that was their choice, that worked to their strengths, that they had some autonomy and agency and control. And when we did that, we then figured out how to support, their working memory and things, little things like giving them, they weren't worksheets, but daily sheets that said, what are you going to do today? What materials do you need to get this done? What's step one? What's step two? Taking a few minutes at the beginning of class or sometimes it might take the whole class, but taking that time to get them to really mark out in their own words what they had to do to achieve their goal and set those milestones. And then what we found is that was great at the beginning of a semester or something, but every day we'd have to start that all over again every time we met. So we said, okay, you have these big goals. What are you doing today? What is today's goal? And I found all these hiring programs for neurodiverse individuals like SAP and Microsoft and EY, all these big top global companies have neurodiverse hiring programs. So I'm like, what's this about? And I really expected to hear things like, oh, well, the CEO has, a nephew with autism and thought it would be a good idea. Nothing like that. I talked to the managers of the program and they said, we want the talent. We can't get enough talent. We call neurodiversity our competitive advantage. Wow. Because they found when they took a very detailed oriented, really fixated on every I and T, what a great cybersecurity professional, right? And when they put that together with a person whose ideas are just going off all the time and constantly new ideas, what a great designer. And they put these teams together to go out and their clients loved it. So love it, not past tense, love it. And they said, but we can't get enough because their theory was many of these kids have been so discouraged by the educational system that they're sitting there in their parents' basement thinking they can't do it. So I went out and got stories from people in these programs and how they moved from dishwasher or whatever to being discovered and going to a job fair and becoming a cybersecurity professional. And
Wow.
the stories of that in the book. And I have stories of all the kids that I worked with, not all, but many of the kids that I worked with in the school setting, and how Sadie and I supported them and sometimes didn't support. Not all the stories are successes, but what we tried. And I put it all together into a book called Reaching and Teaching Neurodivergent Learners.
And can you hold it up again?
Yeah. Let's see.
All right, let's see if we can get it with your background.
Yeah, there we go. It's published by, come on.
Reaching and Teaching
Neurodivergent
Learners in STEM, Strategies for Embracing Uniquely Talented Problem Solvers, Jodi Asbell-Clarke.
Yeah. And it's published by Routledge, Taylor and Francis in their Eye in Education series. Okay. But it's also available on any
Amazon?
Like Amazon? I wasn't going to name it, but yes. And it's even the first night I got it, it showed the publisher said it was out, and it was even in Walmart. And I went, whoa, I think I've made it.
Really? Wow. Well, I guess you had a publisher. See, I did mine myself. Mine only got where I put them,
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
Well, they were very generous in their support, and the book's doing well. And interestingly, around the same time that we published the book, I learned that a big source of professional development now is book studies, where teachers, a district will host, or TERC's hosting them, where teachers can come on and I'll go through the chapters with them and give them resources and materials. So if anybody is interested in a book study around this for the teachers, reach out for our TERC website, and in particular, terc.edu/ND for neurodiversity in STEM. ND in STEM will get you what you need to know. And I can send you those links.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, wow. Now, when did you move to Halifax during all this? I know you said you've been there.
When I started at TERC, I worked for TERC for maybe 6 months before my husband got a faculty position up here. And I was working on an astronomy project with them called Hands on Universe. And I went and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to move. My family's going to move. And they said, that's okay. Let's figure out how to make this work. This was in the day of Fetch and Gopher file transfer systems. It was before the World Wide Web. And, the dial-up, all that. So, but we made it work. And I'm so grateful. TERC has been such a wonderful organization to work for. And
where are they located?
They're located in Cambridge, Mass. Although we're pretty well virtual now. TERC, www.terc.edu. I will say it's, as the STEM education world funded by predominantly federally funds in the U.S., it's a time of pivot and challenge for TERC, but we're in a good position. And hopefully, as some doors close, others will open. That's what we're banking on. So
what are you looking for? Funding?
Well, TERC's been around for 60 years, and I would hate to see one set of priority changes undo all that history. So,
is that what you need is funding? Like if people...
Yeah, I mean, particularly private foundations who are looking to make up the gap. I mean, we will continue to go for our federal funds. It's a different world right now. So, but yeah, private federal funds, that equity in STEM, that means everything from physical and cognitive differences to racial and all levels, K through 12 and undergraduate and graduate, and adult numeracy. We have all levels of interventions and research to narrow the gaps and reach marginalized learners in STEM.
So when you say you have it, let's say I wanted to get that because I have marginalized learners, let's say I have a school or something, what is it that I'm getting? Is it the games or is it knowledge? Like, what?
That's a great question. TERC is a large organization. I lead a team of 10 researchers out of about 80. So we have all different types of projects. The things I've talked to you today about are game-based learning. We also do a lot of learning technologies, virtual reality, AI, that we're doing things like that. But we also, TERC's involved, has the Forum for Equity in Math, and has the investigations curriculum, which is a very decades long, very established math curriculum that teachers for elementary schools, based on real world math and problem solving skills.
So it's curriculums.
So curricula like that. We also have other math interventions. We have projects for museums to get involved with lots of informal science, both in person and virtual. We have a project that I've worked on, including neurodiversity and foundational applied computational thinking, called InFact. Those are open source materials that at that ND and STEM address I gave you before, you can download them and use them in your elementary and middle school classes. We are building PD programs around those. So
who's the one that would be reaching out? The teachers or the principals or the districts?
Yes.
Who?
Yes, and yes, and yes. So we work with individual teachers. We work with district supervisors. We work with principals. We work with policymakers. And I would also say for my book, there's advice on all those levels. The final chapter is, for policymakers, for educators, for parents and families, all kinds of strategies to be more inclusive of neurodiversity in STEM in that case. But TERC.edu will point you to a lot of different resources like that. And I can give you my email address, and anybody's welcome to reach out to me as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So it's curricula. Is that how you called it? So it's for, right? If
that's partial, we have curriculum activities.
Okay.
It's and many of those come with professional development for teachers, because it's very hard to create an effective program that someone can just take off the shelf and not understand or not understand, but not be prepared with the framework behind it and how to best implementation strategies. So we do try to offer professional development often with our products, but we also have, for funders, what we also do is research and evaluation of how kids learn using different interventions. And I didn't mention, we have a big evaluation group who work with other researchers and look at the impact of interventions when they're implemented in a variety, all kinds of settings. So, and then there's Zoombinis, Zoombini.com. I think Zoombinis.com still will get you there, but that's associated with TERC, and that's a TERC product that you can buy through the app stores and, anywhere where games are available. And
wow. So if somebody had a question, which one? They would just call you or contact TERC, and you guys could walk them through. This is what I recommend or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think the website does a pretty good, because it really depends what you're looking for. I think on the website, you can even filter by elementary, middle, high school, discipline, all those kinds of things. And then it'll lead people to the investigator that would be most appropriate to answer questions about their particular needs. But I'm always happy to answer questions or direct people if they want to.
Okay, awesome. All right. Now we're almost done. In about 45 seconds, can you say, like, I don't know, how you see the world, what impact you want to make, something like that profound?
I think that our world has a lot of big problems and challenges ahead of it. And I think we need the best and most talented problem solvers we have. And I think sometimes those people are hidden from us because of the institutions and systems we create. And so I would love to see a world where our institutions, our educational systems, and our society embrace the uniquely talented problem solvers who are out there.
Wow. Thank you. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Do you hear that, everyone? Go to, what is it, TERC.com? TERC?
Edu for
Okay.
education. And the book is Reaching and Teaching Neurodivergent Learners in STEM. And it's from Rutledge. And Zoombinis.com is the best learning game ever. Really fun game.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jodi. It was a pleasure having you. We
Thank
appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you for your dedication and your what would you call it? Courage, your persistence, and not giving up. Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate your getting the word out there.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for watching this episode. I started getting real with Hilary when I discovered that I was a people-pleasing, pleasant phony and wanted to be more of my real self. We can grow together if you will like the show, subscribe to my channel, and share this episode with your friends and family so that we can have a world that's more real.